What up, y'all? It's your boy, OHGOE, one Sir Growth of EVT and England. The topic of this podcast, this particular specific podcast, multiple parallel universes. That is, parallel universes, as some would say. Thank you for tuning in. If you're a fan of this show, if you support this show, man, we 495 are fans of you too. So check it out. Parallel universes. What's the deal, man? What's the big fucking deal? Let's just get to the motherfucking point. Parallel universes. Why do people talk about them? Why do I talk about them, man? Why do I get excited when I talk about fucking parallel universes? Why am I always rapping about parallel universes? Why is the topic always, in some way, inevitably, motherfucking goddamn parallel universes? Well, that's a good question. You know, because, man, it's like Nintendo. When we played Nintendo, the topic was Nintendo for fucking 10 years because we were excited about it, man. Fucking Nintendo was the thing back then, right? Shit. Why did we talk about skateboards for fucking 10 years? Because we were skaters. Why did we talk about bikes and skateboards for 10 years? Why did we talk about whatever, certain fucking fashion and clothing, like, at the time? TNC surf shirts were fucking dope for like a lot of years. There are a lot of different fads and trends. What's up with men's only jackets, dude, that had the secret pocket and shit? That was a long time. That wasn't just 1 year. They had like version 1 and 2 and like other versions, dude. And it was like we were always trying to get that members only jacket when it'd come out, like the new iteration of it. Everything, man. Sony Walkman, talked about that a lot. Rap music. Why do we fucking talk about it? Look, it's been over 30 years we've been talking about rap. So that's why the fuck I talk about parallel universes. Because parallel universes eclipses, okay? I'm talking about, if you want the English on that, parallel universes eclipses, I'm talking about the subject as a singularity, okay? As a singular entity topic. The topic of parallel universes eclipses, that is, overshadows all the preceding. Everything I just mentioned. Parallel universes is the biggest discovery of all fucking time, space, time. And that is a fucking fact. In my opinion, and apparently the opinion of global governments. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So, what the fuck is a parallel universe, first of all? I mean, if you're new to this show, maybe someone out there, you can see that this show's been downloaded, it's been played over 1,000 times. Those are organic. I haven't asked any fucking buddy to play this show. I haven't paid one fraction of a penny to advertise this show, and it's been played over 1,000 times. So, and it's been downloaded hundreds of times. So, somebody's listening. Someone out here in the multiverse is listening to the show. So, since that is a fact, let's suppose for a moment that someone who's listening doesn't know what a parallel universe is. Not everyone knows or has even heard of a parallel universe. Because, people just randomly play podcasts sometimes. They're like, oh, I've never heard of this fucking show. Sounds kind of stupid. Casting 495 celebrities worldwide. What the fuck does that mean? Let me just press play. Huh? What? Parallel universe? What the fuck is a parallel universe? I'm just saying, man. Like, no disrespect. That's out of respect. I'm saying out of respect. Look, man, not everybody thinks the same. People think differently. And not everyone is aware of the concept of a parallel universe. So what are some of the principles of a parallel universe? How can a parallel universe be defined? I'm not Wikipediaing anything. I said Wikipediaing anything. Try to say that. Wikipediaing. I'm not wiking anything. In other words, I'm not Googling shit, dude. I'm just going from fucking memory. I sometimes look shit up on the show, but it's tedious and it's arduous, man. And it's not like I have like a laptop over here next to me. This is a mobile fucking podcast, dude. I'm just flying through hyperspace, dude, in my fucking spacecraft. More or less. So, point is, dude, on a terrestrial level, on Earth, right? So, a parallel universe can be defined quite simply as a universe like that of our own. If you think of everything that encompasses, that comprises our known universe, what is known and even unknown, like in our sphere of existence, whatever that entails, the galaxies, the stars, star systems, everything out into space forever, whatever that means, however you want to philosophize that, or however you want to quantify that or qualify that, however you want to put that into perspective in your mind's eye and understand that, wrap your mind around that. The entirety of space-time and the things that are visible and invisible, known and unknown, that's one singular unary universe. Now, imagine another altogether completely different, separate universe. It's not just a second universe. It's a universe almost exactly like the one you live in and that you know, but it's slightly different. It's almost the same. Almost. Same people, some of them different. Or maybe they're all the same, but they don't know you. It's different in some way, some aspect. Something has changed. Maybe a lot of things are changed. Maybe just one thing has changed. Maybe it's just one atom is different. Maybe it's in between that and like some things are different. That's a parallel universe. Parallel universe, the concept of a parallel universe is what I meant to say. The concept of a parallel universe for some people seems very far-fetched. It seems outlandish, just outrageous, and just not true. They're just like, nah, that's not true. There's no such thing. There's only one universe. Pardon me, I just belched. And they're just like, no, I can't buy that. In other words, I cannot subscribe to that. Not buying it. Nope. Not a believer. I'm a non-believer. And no way, Jose, is there another universe? That is a bonkers. Like, that is just way too crazy, man. Dude, you gotta be delusional to believe that there are other universes. Like, what? That's wacky. Right? That's how a lot of people think. Shoot, you can't blame them. I mean, they were taught that there's only one. You know, I mean, that's what we were told when we were kids, that there's only one universe and that we live in that one singular universe. So let's talk about that. Is that really what we were told? Like, were we really truly taught that there is but one universe? So I am of Judeo-Christian faith. I was born and raised in America, and I was and have been a Christian since birth because I was baptized officially, got my baptismal papers from the church, and come from just a little tiny small town. That's my simple backstory. Read the Bible. Later, when I was in college, I read the Torah and I read the Quran. And so having knowledge of other books and taking into consideration, that is, considering all sides and what the different books state in terms of my interpretation thereof, one of the things that I find interesting is that I'm not Muslim, and that's not what I find interesting. That's pretty clear. Just that I'm Judeo-Christian and I'm not Muslim. I have acquaintances and people I've spoken with who are Muslim. And one individual I spoke with in college some like 15 years ago, one of the things that he said to me when we were just talking openly about religion and religious beliefs, we were talking about parallel universes. And he said, I believe we were in physics together, because I was in a science degree program with a mathematics emphasis. So the degree program that I was in college was science with a mathematics emphasis. And so like halfway through my program, halfway through ish, some years into the program, I was in this course, and there was a student, and after a class, he and I were talking about physics and the prospects of there being other universes. And one of the things that he said to me, I was taken aback by it. Like, damn, that's really interesting that you would say that. Because I remember like flipping through the different the different sections of the Quran and just reading it, because I'm like, yo, I'm Judeo-Christian and I want to know what the Muslims believe. So before I'd ever spoken with him, I had read the Quran and the Torah. And he says to me, and it brought my memory back, because I recalled exactly that section of the Quran that he was referring to. Sorry, man, I just had to take a break and think about, I paused the podcast. Y'all don't know that unless you work in sound engineering or you just perceive the difference there. But I literally took like a several minute break, not to like collect my thoughts. I just had to do something real quick. And so at any rate, what he said to me, and keep in mind, my knowledge of parallel universes back then, at least consciously, like on the foreground level of like reality, wasn't as vast as it is now. I didn't know back then in my early years of college what I know now. And so, but he says to me, well, even in Islam, we have certain information that suggests that there are, now keep in mind, man, for anybody listening who's like the type to be offended or is like quick to like play that card, like I'm saying something that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I am saying that this is almost verbatim what he told me, whether it's motherfucking true in Islam or not. This is what the fuck he told me. And I read it myself before I ever spoke with him and before I ever met him. He said, we have certain, this is what he said. We in Islam have information that suggests that there are, as I would interpret them to be, parallel universes. Because Allah, God, that is Allah in the Islamic faith, Allah, accordingly, is the creator of all worlds. So all systems, essentially, is what he was saying. Whether it's planetary in the sense of like our known galaxy and other galaxies, and just other dimensions, like other universes, is what he went on to say. Very specifically. He was very specific about how it was his interpretation, his belief, that Allah, in his faith of Islam, is the creator of all worlds, not just one universe, but multiple other universes. And he said that. And whether somebody who is of the Islamic faith would agree with that or not is not my point. The point is that's what he said, and that's his belief, and that was his interpretation. So, were we as humans taught that there's only one universe? Think about it. What does the Bible say? Does it say anything about God? In the biblical Judeo-Christian sense is what I'm saying. Does it say that anywhere that God created all worlds? Well, I don't know that that's the case. But it does say that God created everything. And does it say that there's only one universe? I don't know that the Bible actually does. I just know that it says that God is the creator of all things. And so people can interpret it however they do. What I know about science in relation to religion is just because someone has a religious faith doesn't mean that someone of religious faith doesn't believe in science facts. So someone can be religious and have faith and also believe in science and what we know as scientists. Because I studied science. I've practiced science. It makes me a scientist. The degree program in which I was enrolled in college was a science program. So I've studied science at the college university level, and I've practiced it. I have practiced science. Science is logic. It is the application of science. If you are an engineer, you're working in engineering, software development, computer programming, you're applying science. You're applying the scientific method. The scientific method is a method to apply. And when you apply it, you say, okay, well, in engineering, through trial and error, we've learned that all these things that we do today are the most efficient way of doing things. That's science. You're using science. If you do that on a daily basis, if you do that regularly, you're applying science. You're applying a method, a scientific method. And that's how a lot of professions and a lot of different fields are. People don't often think of themselves as scientists, but if you're calibrating, recalibrating, taking notes, observing nature, natural phenomena, processes, how do we improve this process? How do we optimize this? You have linear optimization and you have nonlinear optimization. So if you're applying an optimization function to that equation, to that system, that subsystem, you're using science, you're applying science. So I've worked in applied science in that I've taken this that already exists, it's pre-existing, and I've added that is integrated that into this system over here. I've combined the two systems, I've linked the two, and now I've created a new system. That's science. It's applied science. Taking two things that already exist, stringing them together, connecting them, combining them, and now you have a new system. I've done that. That's science. So in the technical field, in the technical field of science, where it's not just necessarily abstract, like thinking, theoretical, again, abstract on paper in one's human mind, when applied to the real world, when we look at the multiverse, when we look at what the Bible says, it basically says that God created all things, and we know in the world of science that there are things in our universe that are unseen, but they're there. We know they're there, just like the Higgs boson, just like we figured out Einstein condensate. Literally, I have seen physical empirical data evidence. You can find this information. It's open source. It's declassified. I've seen classified systems. I've been in facilities and government complexes and facilities where I've seen things and I'm privy to certain information on the classified level and levels. And because I'm a government defense contractor, I was in a street gang. I went back to school. I was like, yo, man, I'm tired of fucking doing this street gang shit that's petty and it's just like a mundane daily fucking routine. It's just like selling weed, being out on the block, sitting on the stoop, drinking 40s fucking from sun up to sundown, with the cigarette butt in the 40 from the night before. Fuck it, just drink up. Let's get this fucking party started, right, y'all? But yeah, man, I was like, yo, that's a fucking whack loop. Like, that shit's dumb. I mean, you know, that shit is limited in the calculus of it all. You know what, man? I'm going to take my fucking money and I'm going to go back to school, dude. And, you know, take out some loans and shit and fucking go to school. Because, man, shit, I at least fucking graduated from high school. So, shit. So I went back to fucking school, dude. I went to college. And I've been enrolled in a lot of different college programs. Spent a lot of fucking money in college. because I got sick of hanging out on the fucking streets doing stupid shit. So I was like, yo, I'm going to go to school. That's what I'm going to do. Y'all can sell drugs with your drug money and hang out and fucking have spinners on your car and talk about fucking bitches and like selling drugs and like selling weight and like selling drugs and like being ballers and like selling dope and like being D-boys and like trapping and having trap houses and like your clothes and your jewelry and whatever, dude. Sag your pants, whatever, man, you know, with your chains and shit, you know, rolling and talking all this shit about like, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever that life is about, right? I was like, yo, dude, I'm just going to go to school, man. Fuck all that stupid shit. So I went to college and I've traveled and I've been enrolled in a lot of different colleges and universities and I've been in many different fucking programs. So, because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I chose to do. So I studied science. I studied physics. I studied chemistry. I studied inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry. I've studied engineering, physical, mechanical, electronics, engineering. I was in EE for 2 years. I'm not bragging. I'm not boasting. I'm a humble dude. I'm actually an introvert, man. I do media. I do the extroverted, like alpha male shit. I do that for revenue, to pay for my R&D projects. That's why I do this, man. I don't do this for fucking fame and for glory and all that shit. I really don't. I'm being fucking 100% perfectly candid and honest with you. I just knew, dude, that when I was in a science program, that I was going to have some really fucking cool ideas, man. And back when I was in my early years of college, I worked with some computer experts at the time, and we were pitching projects to the government, and the big book, you know, that has all the like grant monies and shit. Just that whole like handout system. I've never been a handout dude. I'm a go-getter. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, man. I've got great ideas like Elon Musk, and I'm not going to be asking the government to fund my shit, dude, because the government likes to fuck with people, dude, and it likes to play games. I mean, yeah, granted, it gives out grants, but I don't want to be someone who applies for grant money, dude, as a fucking scientist, man. And I don't, you know, because you hear about scientists, man, that have gone to school. Like, I'll give you an example. So I met this dude, right? And he's a molecular biologist. And he was telling me that, like, I've met scientists from some, like, DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. I've met researcher scientists from National Institute of Health, NIH, people who have worked at NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, people who have been at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. I'm not talking about the hospital. I'm talking about the annex, where scientists from different agencies, they work on solving problems like gene therapy to cure AIDS, to cure malaria, to cure PTSD, countermeasures, all kinds of shit, man. Like all the shit you see on DARPA's website and in videos, I've met scientists who work on those projects and those programs. I got my CAT card, man, at the Pentagon, so my biometrics are on file at the Pentagon. When I worked at multiple Air Force bases, I had to go to the Pentagon to get my CAT card. I actually went to DARPA, and there was a technical issue at the time, so I ended up having to go to the Pentagon to get my CAT card when I was between two different Air Force bases. Some shit, like what was it, fucking almost a decade ago? So before I moved the business operation to New York here on the East Coast, I had been at the Department of Defense officially, just in case somebody thinks I'm fucking delusional and that I'm crazy and that I'm out of my mind. Oh, that guy, he's crazy how he's talking about all that shit. It's blah, 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 blah. It's not true. That dude's making up that story. Really, bitch? That's kind of funny that you would say that, because I was at the Pentagon, and I was at Andrews Air Force Base, and I was at Bowling Air Force Base, and I've been at the Department of Justice, and I've been at other agencies that I won't even fucking tell you about. Like, I won't even mention those agencies. And I've been there, and I've worked on projects with people, and carried out missions successfully, and I've been paid for my service to country And that's a real fucking thing. In fact, that's how I bought all the shit that I have now. That's how I have the equipment that I have. That's how I have the tools and all of the hardware and software and all of the shit that I have now, because I'm a government defense contractor. Look, I went to college and many different universities, and I figured out how some shit works. So now that I have all of that on my resume, dude, come on, man. Please, motherfucker. People don't know me from Adam, man, and they just be saying shit just like any, entertainer on, YouTube, social media, Instagram, Facebook, this, that. They be like, oh yeah, that rapper's a fucking, fuck that rapper. That rapper's stupid. Like, fucking talking about misogyny and like destructive behavior, fucking sagging pants, drinking fucking rosé, Moet, fucking stupid rappers popping bottles, bunch of ignorants, bunch of reprobates. Look, man, not every rapper fucking lives that life, man. In fact, I just found out the other day that whether it's true or not, apparently Ice Cube has a degree. His degree, man, he learned architecture, so technically he's an architect. Does he practice architecture? I don't know, but he's a fucking famous Hollywood director, producer. He makes his own movies, Cube Vision and shit, or at least he did. Friday, next Friday, whatever Friday, you know what I mean? Like, dude is a baller, like a real, like Don, like mega Don. And yeah, man. So, some people just know him from NWA. Oh, that's his Ice Cube, man. He's in that rap group, Niggas with an Attitude. The world's most dangerous crew. Shit, NWA and the Posse. Fuck the motherfucking police. Yo, man, hey, Ice Cube is educated and he's degreed. According to what I read, whether it's true or not, shit, probably is. So, I mean, look at other rappers, man, like P. Diddy. I could be wrong, but doesn't he have like an honorable like PhD, man, from like Howard or some shit? I mean, whether that's true or not, don't quote me on that. But the thing is, man, he sold what? Like how many albums? Over 75 million? I don't know, 150 million, like some tremendous, enormous number of like millions, tens of millions of albums that he sold. So like if he was in a business program at Harvard or whatever, or I'm sorry, Howard in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, even if he didn't complete the program, I don't know if he did or he didn't, but even if he didn't, I mean, what professor of his that he had or, just maybe didn't have, but what professor in the business, in the business field, in the business department, what professor has started a business that has been as successful as P. Diddy's Bad Boy entertainment business, right? Okay, so you have professors who profess, that is, they teach business, they have a PhD, and they've never been as successful as P. Diddy. I mean, he started his business from the fucking ground up, and he outshined, that is, outdid his colleagues, his luminaries, people in his field, financially and success-wise. So, in his field, that's PhD level, man. They can't teach him anything really about business. They can't teach him about success because he eclipsed them, he overshadowed them, and he is the most successful out of all of his peers and his colleagues and his professors. So my understanding, whether it's true or not, I thought I heard something about at some point he was back in the DC area and he received an honorable PhD. Again, don't quote me on that. I haven't Googled it. That's just from memory. The Mandela effect is weird. It's a strange phenomenon and shit changes. Which when I did the podcast last night, in my mind, man, I was recalling that Paul Hellyer was former Prime Minister of Canada. But when and fucking fuck off my work, bitch. Smiths. But yeah, man, when I was listening to my podcast today that I recorded last night, early this morning, where I was talking about extraterrestrial beings on Earth, I had mentioned that I had said that Paul Hellyer, from my memory, my recollection, I believe I said something about I wasn't certain. I was like, yeah, I don't recall exactly, but he was something like the former Prime Minister of Canada. When I looked the information up today, on Wikipedia, on Google, on the interweb, that is the World Wide Web, www. When I looked the shit up, dude, I didn't see any indication or instance of him ever having been the Prime Minister of Canada. I did see where he had been at different ministries, and I believe one was transportation. I'm going to look this up. And something about defense, like Minister of... Oh, it just came right back up. It's already here. Good. So it says Minister of National Defense. So he was the Minister of National Defense, according to this timeline's Wikipedia, between 22 April 1963 and 18 September 1967. But this is weird, too, because it says Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson, preceded by Gordon Churchill, succeeded by Leo Cadoux. That's French, and my French isn't that good. I don't know fucking French, dude. I don't know how to pronounce this. Leo Cadoux. Cadoux. So yeah, but it doesn't say. It doesn't. I mean, man, if he was the Minister of National Defense in office from 1963 to 1967, when I saw him, man, before even the 1970s, man, when I've seen him in the media, like in the past 10 years, dude, they made it seem like he was the Minister of National Defense, like in the past, like 15 years. But according to this Wikipedia piece, if I'm reading this correctly, maybe I'm not reading this right, man. Maybe this shit isn't even fucking real. You know, maybe it's, you know, because Wikipedia is non-scholarly. But for brevity, man, and just, you know, for sake of podcasting here, just looking at this like surface information, that's why I don't really like Wikipedia, but it serves a purpose when you just want to look up some basic information and you're like, well, I don't know if it's true or not because Wikipedia is sketchy, but let me just get some basic information that may be true. And of course you can cite it because it's Creative Commons. But yeah, man, so I see here, so then later he was the Minister of Transport. It looks like he went directly from national defense to transportation from that same year in September of 1967 until April. That would be the spring 2 years later. So he was there for like September to April. From 1967 to 1969, he was in transportation. I don't see anything. Let's look here. Let's look at Canadian prime ministers. Let's see what the Mandela effect is up to today. Canadian, typing this, bear with me. Canadian prime minister. Not O-Rhyme. Canadian O-Rhyme minister. List of prime ministers of Canada. All right, so here we go. Let's see what Wikipedia fucking has to say. They start with the first. Sir John A. Macdonald. 1815 to 1891. All right, let's, Mr. McDonald. Chrome isn't, fuck you, bitch. Wait. All right, okay, so that was, what did I say there? I don't want to just repeat it and it be wrong. I just want to make sure that what I'm looking at is, all right, so it looks like the very first prime minister was Sir John A. Macdonald. That is Sir John A. Macdonald, 1815 to 1891. Now let's go forward. I don't see, okay, nope, no Paul Hellyer. Nope, we're in the 1900s. The very first. So going into the 1900s, it's John Diefenbaker, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Diefenbaker. 1895, that's still the 1800s, into 1979. Damn. This cat was the prime minister, man. Wait, what the fuck is... No, dude. Is that their birthday? What the fuck are we looking at here? Okay, hold on. 1874 to 1950. Okay, man, that's not the time that's their lifespan. Yeah, that's their lifespan. That's not the amount of time that they're in office. Okay. All right. Pierre Trudeau, John Turner, Brian Mulroney, Kim Campbell. We're in the 1900s here. Jean Chrétien. Again, my French. Paul Martin, Stephen Harper. That's 1959. Justin Trudeau. Yeah, and that's the timeline. And I don't. Okay, so Paul Hellyer, he was never born in 1923, August, Canadian engineer, politician, writer, and commentator who has had a long and varied career. He is the longest-serving current member of the Privy Council of Canada. So he was never Prime Minister of Canada, according to this current timeline. It does appear that he was, in fact, the Minister of National Defense. But again, as I am sharing with you, when I saw him on TV, similar to how some people remember Mandela dying in prison. That's like half the population, half the human population approximately recalls in their minds collectively that Mandela died in prison. We're talking about educated, college-educated adults. The other half remembers Nelson Mandela being freed from prison, going on to become the president of his country. And that's the Mandela effect. That's what it stems from. Well, it's not a result of Mandela. It's a quantum residual, shall we say, byproduct. Was it intended or unintended? I would say it's intended. So it's not really a byproduct. It's the phenomenon of quantum computing, quantum entanglement, and messing around with tinkering, that is, with the space-time continuum by way of experimentation. It's experimentation that is altering the fabric of the known universe. And there are many instances of it, and there is evidence of it, empirical data that not only suggests, but mathematically, as I've seen a PhD in mathematics, a professor of mathematics, reputable, respectable, knowledgeable, I have seen where the mathematics all around show that the Mandela effect is not a function of memory. It is not something that involves humans misrecalling information. No, it is absolutely not. Memory has been ruled out. Memory has been ruled out. It is not that humans are misremembering information. It's not that something happened in the real world and humans are just not recalling it correctly. That's not the case. That's not what the Mandela effect is. There are people who don't understand math and science to the same degree that we do. The community, the disclosure community that I'm referring to, global collective of observers, folks who have observed what I have observed. We know, we can see it's empirical data. It has been tested. It is testable. And in line with the scientific method, via the scientific method, as per the scientific method, it is shown conclusively through evidence over time, many times, like the supercomputer has calculated, it is run, and it has tallied up the different data points, and what is demonstrated, what is shown, what is illustrated, what is highlighted, and what is output. The output, what it yields is that the Mandela effect is not a function of memory. It's not at all. It's not even close. Memory has been ruled out. So that means that it's a real phenomenon, that it's actually taking place. And I knew that, I suspected that, and I knew that from the beginning. So that leads us back to knowledge of parallel universes. So we know that our known universe, there's dark matter and dark energy. Energy and matter. Dark energy, dark matter. We know that. And we know that in our visible universe, with our naked eyes and with the sensors that we have, electro-optical sensors that we use for space-based missions and ground-based surveillance missions and security defense, electro-optical sensors scanning the spectrum, we know that the elusive body of dark matter, dark energy, we know that the universe, 95% of our known universe, 95% of it is still unseen. It's still undetected. So we live in a bubble where 95% of what's here, we don't see it. We don't mostly perceive it, because we're only observing 5% of something much larger that exists within this same space. So when you look at tactile surfaces, I'm knocking tactile surfaces that you can touch, really those surfaces consist of mostly empty space. When you look at those surfaces with an electron tunneling microscope, with any type of microscopy, when you look at spectral imaging, laser interferometry, when you scan the spectrum, when you tunnel in, when you image in, when you zero in, when you look at information at the fractal level, these surfaces knocking, solid surface, solid object, mostly empty space in reality. So outside of this space that we observe and that we see and that we feel and that we sense with our senses, there's 95% of the universe that exists that we don't know about yet. 95%, dude, is a huge fucking number in juxtaposition, that is contrast to 5%. That is science that we know. Okay? That is a science fact. That is a fact of modern science, that we know this information. So again, talking about the Bible, were we really truly taught that there's only one universe? I don't know that the Bible, even the Christian Bible, I don't know that it actually says that there's one universe. I know that it says that God's the creator of all things, so that would include, in logic, all things. That's all universes. So, you want evidence, right? You're like, well, okay, I hear you, dude, and I hear what you're saying, but, well, how do you prove it? Like, how do you know that they exist? Well, I'm not the only person that knows that they exist. Hugh Everett III, that's Hugh Everett III, you know, the number after 2. Hugh Everett III, that is Hugh Everett III, he figured it out using math, logic, deduction, induction, inference, and he was able to surmise, that is ascertain, concretely, definitively, irrefutably, that parallel universes exist. Look at his papers. Take a look for yourselves. Look at his mathematics. Now, if you think it's bullshit, you'll quickly learn that not only is everything that I've shared with you true, that is why he was working with the U.S. government in areas of classified mathematics, because he had discovered one of the greatest, if not greatest secret of all time. He figured out that parallel universes exist, and I know that our government already knew that, because our government is ancient, and this planet is more ancient than people know. And the actual government, that is the shadow government that controls this planet, the ancients, the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, those who live beneath the earth and in space, they know, and they've long known. The Egyptians, the Mayans, all the different pyramid societies, they all knew. What I'm saying to you is that Hugh Everett 3, he rediscovered that information in the context of his timeline, his era. He figured it out, and he published the information. You see, that was the difference, was that he published the mathematics behind it. So when you hear these stories about time travelers like John Titor, the alleged supposed time traveler, whether those stories turn out to be true or untrue, regardless of debunkers and people who think that they've debunked certain things, I've talked about channeling before. I've talked about the Aldebaran. Have you ever heard of the Aldebaran star system? Have you ever heard of Aldebaran? The Germans, with their Vril society, the lead up to the Third Reich, with these different, like, some pronounce it differently, like Thule, the Thule. I've even heard Thule, Thule, the Vril, and the Thule. Those groups, those societies, they engaged in occult activity. It's considered a cult because the stuff that they were doing, some of it was channeling, having psychics and mediums meditate, and basically remote view. Because when you look at when you consider what Russell Targ has been doing, who created the SRI program, which is the Real World Stargate program, where we use remote anomalous cognition. I said remote anomalous cognition to view information in hyperspace, to astrally project our energy into hyperspace. That's what the Vril were doing. And that's how they came into contact with Aldebaran. Aldebaran, however you want to pronounce that. And because there are different pronunciations. So they were channeling with these psychics and these mediums. They were picking up on intel, psychic neural network intel from telepathy from a group of advanced alien beings, just like you send a radio wave out into space. You're probably like, well, how do you do that? Like, you know, those of you who are like skeptics, and it's cool to be skeptical, man. I mean, you know, I'm a skeptical scientist too. But the reality is that remote viewing is real. I'm not here to convince you that it is. It's real. It's you can see declassified information on the Stargate, the Real World Stargate program with Joseph McMoneagle, Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann's the one that found out that Jupiter has a ring around it. He figured it out before our government had satellites in space. Now I'm talking about the terrestrial government. I'm not talking about the alien government. I'm not talking about the aliens that have always been on Earth since before humans. They knew the whole time. I'm talking about the terrestrial government that didn't know when the remote viewing program was created. That's when Ingo Swann, he figured out before we even had satellite evidence of such that there are rings around Jupiter. So a human being using psychic abilities was able to verify and confirm that Jupiter has a ring around it before the terrestrial government, I'm not talking about the shadow government, before the terrestrial government knew, and it's documented. Edgar Casey is another scientist, remote viewer, psychic medium, who it's been determined was legitimate, and his information, he has tens of thousands of files on record with the U.S. government and the university system in the realm of parapsychology, because he wasn't a crazy person. Through third-party verification, triple-blind tests, it was determined that Edgar Casey, Ingo Swann, Joseph McMoneagle, these individuals had the ability, because Joseph McMoneagle is still alive, Russell Targ is still alive, the ability to see out into hyperspace, to view information, not just on one single timeline, but multiple other dimensions of space-time. That is parallel universes. So this information, in terms of parallel universes, some say in the English of it all, parallel universes, because they think it's more proper. They're grammarians, they're sticklers for English and grammar. Um, Parallel universes are documented as being real phenomena. They're very real. They absolutely exist. And our world global governments know about them. The Chinese government has documentation that shows how to open stargates. Does that sound crazy to you? You can read the U.S. government declassified documents regarding Chinese technology, knowledge of wormholes. So let me just put forward some additional information if you're skeptical at this point and you think, nah, dude, there's no such information. Well, first and foremost, if you're unfamiliar with the history of our psychic warfare program, our Stargate program, I'm not talking about the TV show. The TV show is based on the real world Stargate program. See, people think that shit is fantasy, man. They don't realize that truth is stranger than fiction. They think, oh yeah, they just, there's the iris that they travel through and it's SG-1 and it's really cool. Sometimes it's campy with their like outfits and stuff. It's like, have you seen the Masonic like symbology there? Have you picked up on that? That's real. And sometimes things are hidden in plain sight to help awaken those who have been asleep. So the real world Stargate program, Defense Intelligence Agency, Fort Meade, DIA, Fort George Meade, National Security Agency, DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. The real world Stargate program was created to counter what was already underway with the Chinese and the Russians. If you look at archaeological science, when you look at archaeology, the world of archaeology, every time the world's oldest remains are found, and it is said in journals of science and archaeology, oh my God, there's been a new finding, there's been a new discovery. We found bones in the ancient world that are even older than the previous most oldest. I said most oldest. Than the previous bones that we found. Like there's a new set of bones that's been found that is even older than what we have on record before. It's unprecedented. It's always in two fucking places, man. Always two places. Guess where that is? Do you know? Do 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 do. Okay, that was my weak attempt at Jeopardy's theme song. Do 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 do. So China is one, and Africa is the other. Africa, Asia, Asia, Africa, Afrasia. Because hundreds of millions of years ago, that is tens of millions of years ago, multiplied, hundreds of millions of years ago, we have evidence that Asia and Africa were once one. They were geophysically connected. I've talked about this in raps. I've talked about this in commentary. I've talked about this on podcasts. You can see that information, man, in terms of geologic timescales. Look at the land masses where we know they were, and you can see that Africa and Asia were geophysically connected. My college roommate, one of my college roommates, was from Japan. They were all from Japan. My roommates from college. He was a member of a high IQ, International High IQ Society. And he said to me, did you know that a lot of Japanese are aware of what a lot of Americans are unaware of, which is that American, Black, African, whatever you want to refer to Black African Americans as, Black African Americans and Japanese have the same DNA. Have the same DNA. Did you know that? People, folks, listeners, audience, anyone who's tuned in, anyone who's still listening, did you know that? Japanese and Blacks have the same DNA. Huh. Why Black African Americans and Japanese? Why? The Japanese, why? How? What's the connection there? So, if you've ever watched The Outer Limits, the TV show The Outer Limits, whether it's the old one and or the new one, that I'm saying the one that's like colorized and that was like in the 1990s or whenever it came out, the new version of The Outer Limits. When you look at the Siberian Ice Bridge connecting Asia to North America, consider Native Americans. What a lot of black African Americans don't know is there is a very large percentage of black African Americans who have Native American blood. That is Native American genes. That is Native American ancestry. A lot of black African Americans don't know that. If you ask them, they're just like, man, my peoples, we came from Africa and we were slaves. I say this, man, as someone who has black African American ancestry. Myself, mixed minority, and Caucasian. So a lot of black African Americans, sadly, they don't know that they have Native American genes. Now, there are people who have tried to debunk this, and there are people who have tried to also seed the world with disinformation in terms of what really actually truly occurred. So check it out. What does that mean? Why would that be significant? You're like, okay, Grove, I totally get it. Like, you know, there's the whole theory that like slaves like got free, they rebelled, they ran away, rightly so, they should have. They rebelled, they were on the run, and they were taken in by natives. I've heard that theory. Some dispute it, some say it's not true, some refute it, okay, like I don't really know, but I've heard different things about that there. Well, dude, let's suppose some of it's true. Let's just, as scientists, man, as observers, let's just consider that perhaps that's true. That some black African Americans have Native American, that is Native North American, indigenous peoples' DNA in their own genetic makeup. Well, it's also been said that Native Americans have Chinese and Asian ancestry. That is genes. Because the story that I've heard from tribal leaders, yes, I lived in an area that was near tribal lands. In fact, I lived on tribal lands. I used to live in an area that was tribal lands. I knew a family that lived there, and their son was my age, and I had run away from home. I didn't really run away, but I did kind of sort of, but I left, and he knew my cousins who also lived nearby, some of my cousins, and they were Christian, and there are more than 10 brothers and sisters, these cousins of mine, and so in the Christian tradition faith, they had a huge property, and all their kids went to like Christian school. They did really well for themselves. And so when we were younger, they had a friend in the neighborhood who lived by, and he knew me, and I found out that he knew my cousins. And so, and their family, they had property up in Alaska. They ran a business up in Alaska, a commercial fishing business. So he grew up like flying planes, like learning how to fly prop planes and whatnot when he was young. And we used to like go out and like shoot guns together and stuff like that because he had an arsenal of weapons, and so did I. And all of my friends, we had our own like arsenals, and so we'd go out in the woods and like calibrate like sights and optics and like rail up and like blast guns and shit, go to the shooting range. So the point is that they lived on tribal land. And so I lived with his family for more than a year. And I was doing hip-hop shows, events, like hip-hop nights and performances at different theaters and little venues. And at different organizations, there'd be a little stage. And so my crew, we'd go around town, the region, and we'd be like, yo, is it cool if we do a performance? Like, we just looked up, like, in the index, like, all the different places that had stages. So one of the places, we had some friends that were tribal members, natives, and we grew up with them, too. And they're like, yo, you want to do, there's a showcase out here on the res, as they would call it. And they're like, yo, you can fucking do a show here. So I would talk to the tribal council and members. At some point, we got to talking about like history and ancient civilization and all this kind of stuff. Because believe it or not, those of you who are skeptics, there are people who talk about these things, and it's a tradition to talk about the world before modern times. And so what those tribal members, council members, those elders shared with me, and my crew when we were there that evening, they said that that many of the different elders held to the notion that it is in fact true that they came across, that their ancestors came across the land bridge from Asia, from Alaska to China, Russia, the land bridge that connected Asia and North America. So even Asia and North America were once geophysically connected. So like the outer limits, people talk about China, encroachment on America, and like, you know, how according to like some people's opinion, like China is trying to like dominate like globally and be like, you know, a military superpower. It's like China already did, dude. Native Americans are Chinese. Like, the indigenous persons of North America are technically, some of them, Chinese. China was here first. Do you get it? Like the outer limits, like China's not coming here. China's been here. Do you get it? Outer limits, like it's already happened. You know? And black African Americans who have native in them are also Asian. Do you get it? Do you see? Are they really from Africa? Well, no, they're not, because they were born in North America. So they're not really African. Their relatives were. They're North American, indigenous to, born in America with Asian heritage. They're Asian American. That's right, dude. That's right, dude. Yeah. Talk about parallel universes, man. Shit people don't really fucking know, man, and what some of them don't want you to know. Just like the dude that does the videos on YouTube. Stuff they don't want you to know. Man. That's why Professor Griff, though, when he went on his tirade, man, that was anti-Semitic, that wasn't fucking cool. That wasn't cool. Professor Griff, you know you wasn't right for that, though. No, man. Come on, bro. Like, man, leave Israel alone, bro. Like, I saw the whole interview where he talked about it, man, and he recanted and everything. But you know, man, you can't be like anti-Semitic like that, dude, in the hip hop rap game, man, industry, Hollywood and shit, bro. Like even not so, like even unrelated, like that's just disrespectful, dude. You know? But you know what I'm saying? There's other information, and that happened a long time ago too. I have heard stuff from Professor Griff that I do agree with. He talks about Afro-Asiatic disciples, like the last Afro-Asiatic disciples, those who are Afro-Asiatic. And I'm not saying that black African Americans are disciples of any type of religion. That was an album that he put out, Professor Griff, and the last, what was it, last of the Asiatic disciples, or something like that. My cousin Rizzo and I, man, we heard that in high school, and it was phenomenal, dude. It really was. And it was thought-provoking, it was provocative, it was eye-opening, it was mentally stimulating, man. And it was science, it was knowledge, and entertainment all wrapped into one, man. It was the beginning of edutainment, infotainment. He's right, man. He's absolutely correct. We are Afro-Asiatic, because when you do the research, when you look at the genes, when you look at the bloodline, when you look at human genealogy, history, ancestry, and the fact that Japan knows, it's a science fact. That's how the Japanese and black African Americans have the same DNA because North America and Asia were once geophysically connected. And Africa was also geophysically connected to Asia as well as the land masses moved around, coalesced and congealed, and then separated in their separate ways at times. I was just thinking of that song, man, from Journey. Isn't it called Separate Ways? I even podcasted about that. What a coincidence. So yo, check it out. So when you put it all together, you do all the analysis, all the link analysis, and you look at what people on one hand believe to be reality, and then on the other hand, what is the deeper truth reality, and you see it from the latter is, you know, through the latter lens as opposed to the former, then you kind of have to like take that a step further and say, okay, well shit, man, if all these things that we were taught, it turns out that they're not true. They're untrue in that when we do the analysis, we should have originally, in the first place, interpreted these things differently, but by way of design, you know, the system, public school system, they want for you to believe a certain thing, right? They want for you to think a certain way. So they just kind of give you this dumbed down version, you know, like there's the Easter Bunny, and this is what happened with Jesus Christ. And I'm just saying the church, you know, in general, not the public school system as a whole. I'm saying the public school system, the church, whatever, the Vatican. And then these stories, they get modified over time. The Vatican admits openly that it believes in extraterrestrials, aliens, and other systems, other star systems, other dimensions. It admits that openly. So it's been rephrased, it's been recalibrated, it's morphed, it's changed the story, the narrative, the history, right? Because you're like, oh, okay, well, so the church also now believes in aliens? It's like, did the church ever not really believe in aliens, dude? You were told a story, but that doesn't mean that higher ups in the church, religious leaders, didn't already know the truth from the beginning. It's not like they're changing their minds. They're just fucking telling you what they've always already known. You see, they've already known this shit. It's just we were given, when we were kids, children, youth, newborns, infants, we were given the dumbed down fucking version of the story so that we didn't think about things. We didn't, we weren't distracted with the goings on of things in the background of space-time. So higher dimensions, extra dimensions, when the Crest files were declassified from and by CIA under presidential directive and order of higher authorities within the CIA and outside the CIA, when the Crest files were declassified, millions of files. I use a program, a voice program. It's an AI that goes through the millions of files and it reads the files to me rapidly. And I just kind of like pick up whatever I can. I'm like, okay, all right, let me go back. All right. Oh, okay, it says that. All right, interesting. You can read about paradimensional entities. You can read about the difference between hyperdimensional, paradimensional, extra-dimensional. You can read about different beings that have transited Earth, our timeline. I mean, dude, like portals, vortals, there's something that is known as like vortex math. There's vortex mathematics. And you can read about astrally projected, like, information, sentient, like, AI. I mean, it's like, dude, there's so much there. It's just the FBI, like, tracking hyperdimensional beings that the FBI doesn't know where they come from, but they know that they're real. And it actually describes the behavior of these beings and how some of the beings they believe, the FBI believes that some of the beings know that they're being observed, whereas some of them, they can't see us, but we can see them. And how people have been reporting these shadow people since time immemorial. So this shit is real. It's all fucking real. And then as the hairs stand up on my arms, you can see the videos online on YouTube in open source intelligence that is research by and observations by humans around the globe. You can read about time slips, the whole notion concept of time slips, and time anomalies, the type of stuff that has been researched at Montauk. There's the whole Montauk controversy. What happened at Montauk? What were we actually doing there? Is it really shut down? Is it shut down in one dimension and active and operational in another dimension? In relation to the Philadelphia experiment, was the Philadelphia experiment a hoax? Was it made up by someone? There are disinformation agents in the world, man, and they work for the government. And they seed the world with disinformation to cover up certain events that took place. I would say to you that it is my belief, man, profound belief, through decades of research. The Philadelphia experiment is absolutely fucking real, dude. And anybody says that some dude just made it up, because there's a name. They have a name for the guy who supposedly made up the Philadelphia. I mean, the story that there's some dude that made up the Philadelphia experiment is more fucking preposterous than the story itself seems at first glance. Like when you first learn of the Philadelphia experiment, if you think that shit sounds far-fetched, if you think that shit sounds outlandish, after everything that I've already discussed and shared with you, if you think that we, that is America, our military, did not take some electromagnetic energy and wrap a ship, coil up a ship, that is take a ship, a seagoing vessel, and wrap it up with like high-tension cables, and then send electricity down those cables just to see if we could cloak it from like enemy radar, you already know we did that shit. Like, that is not far-fetched. We have done those and conducted those experiments. Well, it's said that the ship disappeared into hyperspace. Like, it was an unexpected, unintended consequence of what it was that we were trying to do, which is basically just be invisible to radar. That electromagnetic field of energy produced a sphere of energy that shifted, that is, time displaced the ship. It appeared at two different locations simultaneously. And you can read about the Philadelphia experiment. I've talked about it at length, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent and talk extensively or at any real length beyond what I've already shared, conveyed in terms of the Philadelphia experiment. But the point is that the Philadelphia experiment in relation to Montauk was a time when we were working with time anomalies, time anomaly research. We were working with, I'm saying America, our government, it's us. We were working with time displacement, hyperspace, remote viewing, and apparently, according to evidence, there were EBEs that were at Montauk that were showing us, as well as there was a location in Washington, D.C. It was it had the title Potomac, the Potomac building. EBEs that had been transiting hyperspace, they were showing us how we could human brain-computer interface. Basically how humans could use a BCI, that's a brain-computer interface. So augmented humans, I'm not saying transhumans, but kind of sort of transhumans. Some, yeah, maybe transhumans, because now you're becoming something different. The ancients, the aliens, the EBEs, they're on Earth and they're saying, okay, look, you can take this human being, augment the human with this brain-computer interface device, and because the human brain is a supercomputer, and from that, with that, you can upload to the human host massive amounts of data in like fractions of a second. Over time, minutes, days, hours, months, years, you'll have a new species of humans, of human. And you'll have this tremendous storehouse knowledge base of information through this BCI system. And what the aliens were telling humans at Montauk was that when you travel through hyperspace It's so fucking absolutely perilous that you need to have tons of information that humans are not already equipped with. You need to have maps, charts, graphs, maps, charts, graphs, maps, charts, graphs, diagrams, schematics, blueprints, diagrams, blueprints, schematics. You need to have fucking knowledge. You need to be a fucking supercomputer, more or less, when you travel through hyperspace. because you might end up somewhere fucked up. And you need technical know-how. You need to have technological knowledge beyond what humans are taught in public school systems. In the public school system. And Montauk was also not just a center of advanced super learning, but it was also apparently a gateway. There was a gateway, whether artificial or naturally occurring, like the Bermuda Triangle. It's a portal, and it's right there down the street from where I am. And the government obviously claims that none of this shit happened, just like it claims that the Philadelphia experiment never happened, and it's all bullshit, and it's all a hoax, and it's all made up, and it's all, just fucking bullshit, fabrications, manufactured stories, just people that are like delusional and have these fanciful stories that they want to tell, because of course our government would never be involved in like remote viewing, right? Remote viewing, dude, what's that? Like, that's not real, like, that's just made up. Cloaking, like our U.S. military would never be involved in some science fiction shit like cloaking devices. Like, that's not real. That's like Star Wars and like Star Trek. That's just science fiction. Yeah, our government, we'd never be involved in time travel. That's just made up by those tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. There's no such thing. Like, why would our government even waste its time on time travel? Like, that's just so far out there, far-fetched and far-flung. Like, that's totally outrageous. These people just need to get a grip and grow up and get a life. Stop talking about all this shit like a bunch of childish, immature idiots, morons, and imbeciles on YouTube. They don't have anything better to do with their time. Bunch of grown men and grown women sitting around talking about time travel. DARPA has no interest in the DARPA IXS enterprise in conjunction, in concert, in tandem, and in relationship with, Eagleworks Advanced Propulsion Laboratories and NASA and CIA and NSA. No, dude, that's just a hoax. 100-year starship. So, dude, parallel universes. It's known that our government is involved in warp time research. It's known. It's declassified. So if the government's told you that it's involved in white Jude, laser interferometry, warp technology, which is how we learned that the different thrusters that we were working on at NASA, they can actually function the way that had been hypothesized and theorized. Yeah, dude. The thrusters that were said to be merely like theoretical, well, it was found out that they're not. Those types of advanced propulsion systems, they work. NASA figured it out. They thought it was an anomaly at first. Then they figured out that it works. Look it up, man, if you don't fucking believe me, dude. It's already declassified information. It says right here. Check it out. Let me type this. WHITE-JUDAY. White Jude warp field interferometer. All right, White Jude warp field interferometer. The White Jude warp field interferometer is an experiment designed to detect a microscopic instance of a warping of space-time. Microsingularities, dude. Our government's involved in microsingularity research, black hole research. That is warped time research. Anytime you're dealing with warp time, the warping of space-time, that's time travel. It is nothing short of time travel. It's all time travel research. It's all deep space, interstellar, real world, interstellar, space-time, time-space, warped space, time travel. Again, for emphasis, anybody who's listening to the show, my point in all of this is any research involving the warping of space-time, which our government has admitted openly that it is working on, that is time travel research. They're not going to tell you that it's time travel research because they don't need to. Our government doesn't need to broadcast it to the masses because the masses are busy watching Britney Spears videos. Oops, I did it again. Dude, some people just don't give a fuck. They don't care, dude. They gotta go and sag their pants, dude, at the mall, man, and rock a fucking gold chain and get some spinners for their car, man, because their old spinners ain't as fresh as the new ones. They don't give a shit about fucking time travel, man. Warp space technology, white Jude, warp field, interferometer. Don't give a fuck about none of that shit. They don't even know that the fucking shit exists, and they don't give a fuck, and they think it's all fake anyway. Time travel, that shit's for the birds, man. You guys are tripping. There's no such thing. Dude. So, that brings me to my even larger point, and the reason why I decided to podcast this particular episode. This is parallel universe research. If you've been on this show the whole time, like from beginning to end of this particular episode, you are with me on this path researching parallel universes. You know now what a fraction of human society knows. Because most of human society, A, doesn't give a fucking shit. B, thinks it's all fucking delusional and crazy, wacky, bonkers, all made up shit. C, think, well, if some of it's true, I don't know, but it's still like so far off and it's like years down the road and it's like maybe in like a century from now or half a century. It's like, no, dude, no, it's been done before. We've done this before. There are stories on the internet of people who have been walking down the streets of cities like New York, who have lived there since forever. And for some reason, somehow, some way, just like the movies, like Dark City, that's all I'm going to say, I'm not going to give it away. And the 13th floor, that's all I'm going to say, I'm not going to give it away. Dark City, 13th floor, Dark City, 13th floor, Dark City, 13th floor, Dark City. Just saying, dude. Have you seen one of those? Have you seen them both? Do you know the secret about the two of them combined? Huh. What a fucking coincidence. So check it out, man. In the real world, there have been stories of people walking down the street. All of a sudden, dude, there's a different fucking city, man. It's a different New York. And dude, there's no one there. Because, dude, someone's accessed a parallel universe where there, I'm sure, are people there. But they're just unobservable. Because that person went through, somehow physically traversed, that is transited, traveled through some type of glitch. Some like naturally occurring like time-filled distortion glitch. Like somehow accessed like an in-between interval of hyperdimensional, extra-dimensional, paradimensional, multidimensional hyperspace, dude. Yeah, dude. Yeah. And that's not an isolated event. So there are also people who have gone to places where there are people. There are things. It's not just like Vanilla Skies. Not going to say anything more than that. The movie. I'm not doing a spoiler alert here if you haven't seen Vanilla Skies. It's not like Vanilla Skies in that, spoiler alert, said I wasn't going to do it. People aren't there. Like the first instance of like the glitch. No, dude, there are places where there are people there and shit's different. So you got two different things happen. Sometimes there are people, sometimes there aren't. Man, I've seen parallel universe information where there's a story, perhaps you're familiar with it, perhaps you're not. There's a time slip And this traveler just happened to inadvertently end up in a different timeline where there were these beings that all looked very odd, very like eerie looking, just like different types. They were bipedal, they walked, but they were like weird, creepy looking things. And this person became catatonic, like immediately like fearful, and realized that that person was in a different dimension. This is real shit. This is documented. This person was not experiencing any type of hallucination. This is a real event. And it's in the Journal of Parapsychology. And the vast annals of like parapsychology. And in that universe, on that like country road, this person immediately thought that perhaps that person would be trapped in that universe forever. And all of these beings in that society, in that place where those beings existed, because there were no humans there as far as that traveler who had inadvertently traveled to that dimension could tell, they were all sitting around eating these like strange fruits. And they were like, or vegetables or whatever they were, some type of vegetation or fruit. And they were looking at him and like making these sounds and like kind of like nudging and pointing and like motioning that, hey, look at this thing. And it was like, it probably wasn't the first time that they had seen someone like him, but they were definitely observant of him and just kind of like moving about. And so at some point, like it all dissipated and like he transited out of it, you know, going around like a corner and down a pathway and around, you know, around another corner and through some field with some trees and grass and shrubs. It all went back to normal. Dude, there are many different stories like that. And by the way, in that universe, in that world, there were these strange triangular geometries. Like there were these strange triangular like geometries. So we know that parallel universes are real. In the story of John Titor, the many worlds interpretation, don't take my word for it. This is what Hugh Everett 3 figured out. This is what Hugh Everett 3 decoded. Many worlds. Type it, Google it, speak it, look it up. It's here we go. Many worlds interpretation. Hugh Everett 3 knew. His model of the universe has been confirmed. It's no longer a theory, man. And honestly, it never really was. It's just reality. So John Titor's story, whether you think it's real or unreal, the many worlds model of the universe has been confirmed. I'm your boy, One Sir Grove, parallel universes researcher, rap artist extraordinaire, 495.